loaded video title, so here we go. I'm a fan of this brand. Let's get that out of the way right now. Phones are getting more samey, but when we look at manufacturers, we can still separate by a few differentiating features. A better screen here, a better camera there. LG continues to win my affections for audio and camera controls. I'll have separate first impressions videos for camera and audio tech, but for this video right here, I just wanted to tackle the phone side of the equation and my thoughts after the first week of using it. I'm really glad to be back on a smaller LG. It's not quite reaching the same one thumb ability of some of my Mighty Mouse handsets, but the G8 is still a small return to better one-handed use after rocking an LG V40. And popping my SIM card out of my Nokia 9, one of the reasons why I'm happier to be back on an LG is, of course, this rear-mounted fingerprint sensor. My experiences so far on in-display fingerprint sensors have been underwhelming. They're techier and they're cooler looking, but they're still less practical and slower than dedicated and rear-facing hardware. And we're all moving to taller aspect ratios, so swiping the sensor for your notifications feels perfect. Everything's a little softer, a little rounder over last year's G7, and this is my second phone this year with zero bulge on the cameras. That's a nice little design accent. On this smaller frame though, I still keep hitting the Google Assistant button when I'm hunting for volume down. That muscle memory is just gonna take a little bit longer to retrain. For a lot of folks out there, moving to an OLED display is gonna be a nice perk for a G series phone. The G7 LCD was and still is terrific, but we can always have those conversations and debates about the color and contrast of an OLED versus the burn-in issues. I don't believe that one is superior to the other, but I personally do like the inky contrast on an OLED. Sticking with the display for a bit, I do have to tag LG for following a trend I hate on Samsung phones, and that's scaling the screen to 1080p out of the box without really disclosing that to consumers. It's scummy when Samsung did it, it's scummy that LG followed. And there's barely a registerable benefit for scaling back that resolution. If you want to hypermile your battery life, go down to 720, and that'll deliver some extra runtime. But neither the G8 or the Galaxy really need that tiny bit of battery assistance from going to 1080p. It's lame and dumb, rant over. And of course, we can't discuss the display without commenting on the notch. I really wish we could have gone smaller, a teardrop notch, or some other solution that just didn't affect the screen at all, but I will give LG a little credit that this phone is packing near Apple level of security for Face Unlock in a much smaller unibrow than an iPhone. And I'm so happy that LG's Face Unlock actually bypasses the lock screen, getting me into the phone without another swipe or gesture. I'm not into the phone, I'm into the phone. It's also not tricked by a picture of my face. Security, it's better. If there is a security gimmick, it's the palm unlock. It works so much better than I thought it would, but it's also in that time range where it's slower than other options on the phone. I would say train it and have it there. Maybe there will be a time where it comes in handy, but in general, you'll be able to get into the phone way faster with a face or with a fingerprint ID. Moving to the software, LG skin has gotten a lot less offensive over the years, and this is another steady step of improvement. If you're not a fan of the icons or the theme, you can adjust them. I will still probably switch over to Nova Launcher for one big gripe that I can't really fix, and that's the app drawer. First, I am liking the pill home button in Android Pie, but I hate that LG moves you to horizontal app pages. Continuing to swipe up moves you backwards through those pages, and swiping down closes the app drawer. That is so dumb. Admittedly a small irritant, but I greatly prefer having just a single vertical column of apps. It just makes more sense for my thumbs when I'm using it. And for the life of me, I'll never understand why LG won't continuously alphabetize your apps. Install something new, it's tacked on to the end of your list. Uninstall something and there's just a hole in your app list. With every app change, you have to manually re-alphabetize. So another launcher fixes those issues, and I'm probably gonna switch back to Nova Launcher tomorrow. I just wish LG would polish that up. Otherwise, the rest of the UI is well executed for a phone, which is obviously not stock Android. Talking about performance, LG says that my phone is ready for prime time, that this is a proper retail phone, so I put it through a few tests. The chipset is well powerful, but I think we're in a holding pattern for apps really truly tapping into that power. Video rendering in Power Director, for example, produces similar performance to what we saw on last year's chipsets. The Android Pie update was a bit of a performance hog, so the new Snapdragon returns us to the speeds we saw last year on Android Oreo. Happily, video stabilization in Google Photos seems to have gotten a shot in the arm. Snapdragon 845s running Pi have been performing very poorly in this test compared to Oreo. The 855 is absolutely smoking them here. So I'm really happy to see at least one tangible data point of improvement. And one last comment on performance, I'll be taking a deeper dive into work and gaming in a future video, but early impressions are pretty positive. LGs have not typically been great options for gaming. LG software prioritizing battery life over your frame rate. On the G8, your game settings default to high quality. You don't have to go in there and change that. And that seems to be reflected in gameplay. Games that track frames per second manage to hang around 60 FPS. It's not driving like a Razer phone, but this is the first LG I've used where gaming didn't feel like an overly compromised experience. More on that later, but I can't wait to host some game streams on a phone with the best built-in headphone jack you could listen to. That's gonna be nice. Lastly, this first week of battery life has been great. Another weak spot for LG's nicely addressed. A very good capacity for this size phone, multiple ways to charge. Our video streaming test posted an excellent result, and the recharge rate was upper mid-pack, right in line with other premium options. So let's wrap this up. First week with the LG G8, where do we stand? I'm really happy. The G8 feels a bit like a refinement year, an S model phone, but those always turn out to be my favorites looking back. Phones that don't wow us as much for design, but show some focus, attention to details, and ultimately offer up the better user experience. And this isn't even my full review of the phone. I always think it's kind of dumb to call a video a review after only a week or two of use. So I still need to dig into networking performance around town. I want to do some streams and work through the HDMI output, and damn it, I will get good at these ridiculous air control gestures. I still gotta practice a lot. Now, I've got a bunch of videos coming out for the G8, the early scoop on camera and audio tech, some comparisons, but stay tuned for my long-term coverage, the camera and audio deep dive reviews, which will be Patreon exclusives, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. I think this phone deserves a little love. Thanks so much for watching, sharing these videos, and subscribing to this channel. Links in the description below for all of my LG G8 coverage, and also a few ways that you can help support production on this channel. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, and more often on the Twitch, and I will catch you all on the next video. On this smaller phone frame, though, I still keep hitting the Google Assistant button when I'm hunting for the volume. Shut up.